Very often there is a lot of talk about human rights in Jammu and Kashmir, and rightly so. It is a heavily militarized zone. But what you will hear most often is about human rights violations by armed forces. Often they are even referred to as occupation forces. However, what is important is to get the full picture. Today we actually show you the testimony of two people, two civilians who day before yesterday during the encounter in Kulgam were not only held hostage by terrorists but even used as human shields. In fact, in an effort to try and ensure that these civilians escaped unhurt, one of the members of the SOG, a constable of the Jammu and Kashmir police, was even killed in action. Listen to these men describe in detail how the terrorists actually used them when they were surrounded by security forces.
किचन में गए तो वो वहीं पे था, उसको गोली लग गई।
उसको तो पता था आपके पास हथियार ये, तो फिर क्यों फायर करा?
सर उसको समझ नहीं आया वहाँ पे मैं क्या करूँ। मैं फिर वहाँ से खिड़की से उतर गया नीचे, गोली लग गई।
फिर फौज आपको हेलीकॉप्टर में लेके आई है आपको?
हाँ सर।
और वहाँ पे आपको क्या मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट मिला? एकदम मतलब पता तो चली गया था आपको गोली लग गई है, तो पहले वहाँ पे इलाज हुआ?
हाँ वहाँ गाड़ी में भी वो इलाज करते, दो बंदे थे, उन्होंने ड्रेसिंग वेसिंग की, ग्लूकोज लगाया और इंजेक्शन भी किया, उससे थोड़ा दर्द कम
हुआ उससे।
जब मैं अंदर घुसा तो धमाका हुआ, मैं वहाँ लब पे आ गया और उसने गोलियाँ भी मारी, फिर उस गोली का शिकार में हो गया। हाँ सर उसको समझ नहीं आया मैं क्या करूँ, तो उसने गोलियाँ चलाई। उसको सोचना चाहिए था सर। मेरे साथ जो एक बंदा था, अगर उसने पहले ही बोला होता तो मैं गोली का शिकार नहीं होता सर। मुझे कहा नहीं सर, मुझे नहीं पता, ना ही फौजियों को पता था। जो बंदा गया था उसने भी बोला मुझे वहाँ पे कोई नहीं है, फिर वो जाने और उसका दिमाग कौन था वहाँ पे। सर बहुत ही अच्छा काम किया इन लोगों ने, बहुत ही सहूलियत पहुँच गई मुझको।
मैं शॉपकीपर हूँ, शॉप चलाता हूँ।
आप कौन, आपका नाम क्या है?
मेरा नाम है शौकत अहमद, मैं डिस्ट्रिक्ट कुलगाम पारीवन का रहने वाला। फिर हमने फौज ने हमें उठाया, फौज ने हमारी बहुत मदद की। फौज ने हमें तुरंत से उठा के हॉस्पिटल ले गए, क्योंकि अपने हॉस्टल पे, आर्मी हॉस्टल पे हमें ले गए, वहाँ फर्स्ट एड दे दिया। फिर जो इमरजेंसी पेशेंट था हमारा पड़ोसी, उसके लिए हेली मंगवाया, इसको हेली से हम यहाँ शिफ्ट किया 92 बेस हॉस्पिटल। और जो अपनी गाड़ी थी उसने हमें तुरंत ले लिया, विथिन 10 और 20 मिनट्स हम हॉस्पिटल पहुँच गए। फौज हमारी बहुत सेवा की, इतना हमारा खून बह रहा था, हमारी डेथ भी हो सकती थी। अगर फौज में फर्स्ट एड नहीं देती तो हमारा ज़्यादा ब्लडिंग के कारण डेथ भी हो सकती थी हमारी। सबसे पहले तो मैं उन लोगों को बताना चाहता हूँ जो इनको पहले पनाह दे रहे हैं, भाई आप क्यों इनको पनाह दे रहे हो? सबसे पहले आप क्यों, किस लिए आप इनको पनाह दे रहे हो? आप देखो इनने हमें टारगेट किया, ये आपको भी टारगेट कर सकती हैं, आपको भी मार सकती हैं। तो लोग इसकी तरफ जा रहे हैं, उनको पहले सोचना चाहिए हम क्या कर रहे हैं। ये अपनी ज़िंदगी को तो नॉर्मल ज़िंदगी गुजारो, ज़िंदगी तो बार बार नहीं मिलती है, ज़िंदगी एक बार ही मिलती है। आप नॉर्मल ज़िंदगी गुजारो, किस चीज़ की कमी है हमें? आप बोलो आप किस लिए हथियार उठा रहे हो? हमारे पास कौन सी चीज़ की कमी है?
बिल्कुल
मेरे पास सब सुविधा है,
सब सुविधा है,
गवर्नमेंट
है आपके साथ।
और देखो मेरी शॉप पे कितनी भीड़ रहती है, श्रम कार्ड्स की, गोल्डन कार्ड्स की, गवर्नमेंट स्कीम की, लेबर कार्ड्स की। गवर्नमेंट ये जो पब्लिक है गवर्नमेंट स्कीमों का फ़ायदा उठा रही है। ये जो बीच में आ रहे हैं पता नहीं ये क्या कर रहे हैं। हम आम नागरिक हैं, हम पिसे जा रहे हैं इसमें, हम पिसे जा रहे हैं आम नागरिक। लेकिन सबसे पहले मैं फौज का बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ, उन्होंने हमें उठाया, वहाँ से हमें फर्स्ट एड दिया। अगर फौज में नहीं उठाती तो शायद हम नहीं बच पाते, मेरे ब्लडिंग के कारण हम नहीं बच पाते। और मेरे आम लोगों से ये गुजारिश है, आप अच्छे राह की तरफ आओ, अच्छे राह की तरफ आओ, आप गलत कामों में मत हो जाओ। कोई मीटिंग के साथ इन्वॉल्व है, कोई इनको जगह दे रहा है घर में, कोई इनके लिए काम कर रहा है, ये बिल्कुल गलत कर रहे हैं। आप क्यों कर रहे हैं? हमारा देश तो एक है, कश्मीर से लेकर कन्याकुमारी तक देश तो एक ही है। फौज के लिए हर वक्त रेडी है, हम अपने गवर्नमेंट के लिए, अपने कौम के लिए, अपने हिंदुस्तान के लिए हर वक्त रेडी है।
In fact, the DGP of Jammu and Kashmir Police has even confirmed that this is not just a stray incident. It's been seen at least in 2 recent cases. The encounter in Hyderpura and subsequently in Kulgam, where terrorists are now using it as a strategy, putting non-combatants, civilians in harm's way when they fear that they are completely surrounded.
देखिए, हर ऑपरेशन के अंदर हमारी जो कोशिश रहती है कि सिविलियन जो हैं उनको बचाया जाए। इस ऑपरेशन के दौरान भी 2 सिविलियन जो जख्मी हुए, जिनको मिलिटेंट ढाल बना करके वहां से निकलना चाहता था, मगर हमारे बहादुर जवानों ने उसकी जो चाल कामयाब नहीं होने दी। सिविलियन को ढाल बना करके उनको आगे लेकर के गोली चलाना, फोर्सेस के साथ आकर के भिड़ना, इसमें लोगों का नुकसान करना और फिर उसको सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस के नाम पे चढ़ाना, ये एक नई साजिश पाकिस्तान की एजेंसियों की है, जिसको बार बार बताया जा रहा है। जैसे कि हैदरपुरा के एनकाउंटर में भी हुआ, उसमें भी ये बताया गया, इस तरह की जो साजिशें हैं उनको भी नाकाम किया जाएगा।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP, continues with us. We have activist Sushil Pandit joining us, Majid Hydari, political analyst. My first question is to you, Advocate Nilofer Masood, the district president of the Baramulla Jammu and Kashmir National Conference. Is it clear now who is using civilians as human shields, ma'am? These 2 men, who Dilbag Singh said were being used as human shields, are detailing exactly what happened.
Padmaja, has the question been asked to me?
That's correct, ma'am. It's to you.
Okay. Padmaja, first of all, if the lives of 2 precious lives have been saved today, we need to congratulate our men in uniform. And at the same time, Padmaja, any act wherein the innocent lives are being used as a human shield, be it men in uniform or be it the terrorists, that needs to be condemned. Because in the past also we have seen when the Major Gogai used one of the persons, Farooq Dar, as the human shield when he was tied with the jeep and just make a way before between the stone pelters. That act was in fact awarded and recommended, and he was recommended for 1 card that was given to him. Though this Human Commission had already taken the notice of the thing and 10 lakh were granted in favor of that person. So that was the act that ought to have been condemned at that very in a single voice, in fact. So what I mean to say here is that any act wherein the lives of the innocent people are put in danger, that needs to be condemned. And if today army has come up and has saved the 2 men from the terrorists, that needs to be appreciated in one voice also.
That is very kind of you, ma'am. Would you also in the same voice say that the terrorists, whether homegrown or sent by Pakistan, Pakistani terrorists who are using Kashmiris, who are using Indians as human shields, need to be condemned in the same voice?
See, Padmaja, there is one aspect that needs to be looked into very seriously by the government of India. Because of the reason we have seen that many youth are taking up the gun. What actually is the reason behind that? Why is there anger? That needs to be addressed.
No, ma'am. That's the cop-out, ma'am. No. There is no anger and there is no reason and there is no justification for using somebody as a human shield. Ma'am, whatever your anger might be, you want to take up the gun, you take the gun, you live by the gun, you die by the gun. But why are you taking a shopkeeper hostage and using him as human shield? You were very generous in saying that the army has been kind to save civilian lives. I'm just asking you a simple question, ma'am. Will you, in the same generous tone, condemn the Pakistan-backed terrorists who are using unarmed civilians as human shields?
We are always condemning that. But what are the responsibilities of the government of India? Why should a youth recognize himself and identify himself with the sentiment of Pakistan? That needs to be seen. Why should he pick up the gun? Why is he forced for that? There is constant anger going in the state.
Sure. Okay, so at least before, this is very interesting. Maybe I'm seeing this is a hopeful softening, but at least the good thing is, Sanju Verma, that the National Conference spokesperson has conceded that if terrorists are using civilians as human shields, they should be condemned. And if the army is saving lives, it should be applauded. Sanju Verma.
You know, Padmaja, I'm glad that, Niloufar Masood has at least been honest enough to say two kind words for the Indian Army, because the National Conference's senior leaders like Omar Abdullah and Farooq Abdullah.
Not only your Sanju, it's not only your Indian Army, it's our Indian Army.
Hold your horses.
Our Indian Army. They don't belong to you a particular party. They don't belong to a particular party. They belong to whole India. They belong to whole India. Say in one word.
Ma'am, I will give you full time to respond. Please let Sanju Verma, let Sanju Verma give her opening comments. I will give you full time to respond. Yes, Sanju Verma.
Yeah. So the point is that, the National Conference spokesperson here comes and says, fine, we need to condemn terrorists who are using Kashmiris as human shields. We need to applaud the Indian Army, which is saving lives in the valley. Fine. All that is so far so good. But the point is, Padmaja, look at the rabid hypocrisy with blatant and brazen impunity. The National Conference leaders, and I will name them and shame them, Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah and gang. You look at their tweets of the last 4 to 5 years. Indian Army has killed more civilians than terrorists from across the border. These are words of Farooq Abdullah ji. The fact that Indian Army is killing innocent civilians in Kashmir rally, and we should find out why the youth of Kashmir is resorting to guns. This is what Omar Abdullah said. Basically trying to say that anyone who picks up a gun in Kashmir, we need to give them a pat in the back and ask, "Arey bhai, aapne bandook kyun uthai hai? Sab kuch theek to hai." The fact is, whether it is employment or unemployment, whether it is economic disparity, whether it is the fact that you belong to the class of haves or class of have-nots, that is not the problem. The problem is a radicalized jihadi mindset. The problem is Farooq Abdullah and Omar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti fail to recognize that global jihad and radicalization of Islam is the biggest problem in Kashmir.
But if we are hearing this from Niloufar Masood today, maybe Sushil Pandit, now that terrorists are turning on people who used to sympathize with them earlier, when you are using the local civilians, and it must be said that one of the people is the homeowner who had given shelter to this terrorist. When he himself was then taken hostage and held as a human shield, maybe even mainstream political parties are beginning to realize that they are riding a tiger, which is why the softening in the case of Advocate Niloufar Masood.
Padmaja, this is not a recent development. Human shields as civilians have been often used by jihadis right from the very beginning. They are cowards. They target unarmed, non-combatant civilians, even women and children, routinely as a matter of practice. And they have been using these innocent civilians even earlier as human shield. They have been using masjids, they have been using madrasas, they have been using places of worship as their hiding places, as a place of vantage. Imagine earlier when you saw that horrific picture of a young child sitting on top of his grandfather's dead body, they were firing away from mosques, using that as a shield. So it is nothing surprising. What is also not surprising is this equivocal condemnation or appreciation. They speak with a forked tongue. You give a compliment to army on one hand and then suddenly invoke a moral equivalence in terms of little Gogoi's then spur of the moment judgment of picking up one of the stone pelters. Farooq Ahmed Dar was a stone pelter who was tied to the bonnet so that the fellow stone pelters deter from pelting stones, and nobody was injured. Not a scratch happened on Farooq Ahmed Dar. So this is, please ask her to keep shut when others speak. She may be from a political party, but she needs to learn etiquette.
Contain your language. Contain your language and maintain.
Please, let's be civil to each other. Yes.
This is what you have been doing.
You mind your conduct first. You mind your conduct first.
Mind your conduct.
Learn how to speak.
I don't need to learn from you.
I'm aware of what I'm saying.
Who is always spreading venom.
You cannot learn ever. You have a problem, congenital problem. and it runs through the leadership.
We should not learn from you.
Okay, this is a false equivalence that Sushil Pandit is talking about when you're drawing a false equivalence between what Major Gogoi did and what these people are doing. He is doing it to a stone pelter in order to control a situation. These people are doing it to unarmed civilians, knowing that they will be killed. On the other hand, madam, in the case of Major Gogoi, was stone pelters. In the case of this man, in the case of Shaukat Bhatt, this was a bullet which would have come from the Special Operations Group. Advocate Masood.
Just a question. Tell me which law gives him a right if he is a stone pelter. Okay, admitted, he is a stone pelter. But just quote me the provision of law which gives him the right to just tie that person before his jeep and make his way.
Quote me the provision of law under which 11 innocents were held hostage by these stone pelters. You want to invoke law in a position where lives are in threat? You want to read Constitution to people who are right now held as hostages? She's a lawyer.
People are very brave. They don't read.
Okay, Majid Hydari.
What law do these terrorists follow?
Majid Hydari, you know the reason why we keep highlighting this testimony is because here you have a man himself, a local Indian shopkeeper who is saying, please पनाह देना बंद कीजिए इन टेररिस्ट को, ये हमारे सगे नहीं हैं, ये हमें ही मारेंगे जब इनको जरूरत पड़ेगी, which is exactly what happened in Kulgam. उनका मतलब निकला, उन्होंने आपको, they threw you into the barrel of a gun.
Well, Padmaja Sahib, before replying to your question, I want to condemn Jammu and Kashmir government for asking the Muslims in Jammu and Kashmir to perform Surya Namaskar, which we'll never do, inshallah. हम कभी भी सूर्य नमस्कार नहीं करेंगे. Now coming to your point.
This debate is not on Surya
Namaskar. No, it was only today the dictator.
Sir, why are you randomly talking about disconnected things?
Completely idiotic.
We need to connect. It is one India. It is one India. We need to integrate. We are into integration with the country. Let the nation know what is happening in Kashmir.
Are you hallucinating? The debate is not on Surya Namaskar. And there is nothing.
Madam, I said
Sir, will you want to quickly comment on the topic at hand, or do you come here just to derail the debate? I'm going to give you a minute. Please talk about the topic at hand. Listen to the local Kashmiri man who is telling you, stop giving them shelter. Yes, come to it.
Exactly. Now coming, yes, madam, coming to your question. See, for a party which is witnessing political divorces on the pattern of triple talaq in UP, I don't think this video is going to help. Because it's the situation of a war-like situation in the country. Civilians are being taken hostage. Our land has been taken hostage by Chinese in Ladakh. We don't talk about that.
No, I'm sorry. I will have to cut you short for two reasons. One, that I'm out of time, and second, that this is completely disconnected and you just come here to make a very tangential point which yields nothing. But the more important idea was to put these testimonies out there. Like Sushil Pandit said, this is not a tactic which is a recent one, but it is being increasingly replicated, and you are hearing testimonies now from Kashmiri people of how they are suffering at the hand of people who are claiming to wage the holy war. Must always remember the full picture. Thank you very much, both ladies, Sushil Pandit and Majid Hydari, for joining me. Thanks for watching.